Day 3 began with Seowoon checking the remaining player log. Only 45 players were left, and among them, one particular name caught his attention, someone he hoped he wouldn't have to face. Seowoon thought to himself that if this trend continued, he might actually reach the top 10. He began imagining the rewards. Perhaps money. Or maybe a rare item. A fleeting thought crossed his mind. Would I be able to take these skills and items back to the real world once this is all over? He wanted to leave the house, but a killer was still on the loose outside. After a moment of hesitation, he decided to move soon regardless. Before leaving, Seowoon decided to test a new power he had awakened. Feeling a strange force rising within him, he opened his subspace and examined the loot he had gathered last night. Among the items, he found a magic book of Wind Ball, a spell that allowed the user to create wind spheres, the number of which increased with the user's power. Delighted by this discovery, he was prompted by the system. "Do you want to use this item?" Without hesitation, Seowoon pressed yes, and the book began to vanish as its knowledge transferred directly into his mind. He attempted the spell for the first time. Escrow magic. Wind Ball. A small wind sphere appeared on his fingertip. At first, he was disappointed by its size, but upon throwing it behind him, he was stunned. The tiny wind spheres weren't weak. In fact, 4 small wind balls completely destroyed the wall behind him. Seowoon remarked, "It's stronger than it looks. It'll definitely come in handy." Immediately after, a message popped up. "You have 0 mana remaining." As time passed, restricted zones began appearing on the map, shrinking the safe area gradually. Seowoon decided to continue farming near the boundary edges while it was still possible. He started moving, believing his chances of running into another player were now lower, since half of them were already gone. "I need to farm quickly before the zone shrinks again," he thought. High above in a tree, someone silently observed him, an old man who watched as Seowoon crossed into another area. With a quiet whisper, the old man said, "How interesting," before jumping down. Half a day passed, and Seowoon finally reached a new village. However, the moment he entered, he was shocked. Chests were looted and the ground stained with blood. He suddenly felt a presence behind him and instinctively cast Wind Ball in that direction. But no one was there. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been watching him. His eyes widened when he saw a blood trail exactly where he had attacked. It turned out there was someone. An injured player. Seowoon hesitated. He considered killing them to obtain valuable loot, but chose to prioritize his own survival, and left without taking anything. Inside the house, the injured player watched Seowoon leave, and sighed in relief. "Thank God I was quick to hide, or else I would have been killed," he whispered. He believed he could have dealt with Seowoon had he not been injured. He started looting the nearby chests, planning to leave quickly. But an arrow suddenly struck him in the head, killing him instantly. The attacker was none other than Seowoon, who had hidden in the shadows and waited. He had tricked the player, secured the loot, and quickly moved toward the restricted zone's edge to continue farming. Suddenly, the same old man appeared behind him and complimented Seowoon's skill. Alarmed, Seowoon moved away cautiously. However, the old man didn't seem hostile. Instead, he simply wanted to talk. Seowoon asked, "Who are you?" The old man replied cryptically, "Would you even understand if I told you?" "We all come from different layers of life, after all." Seowoon gave him a small smile, thinking this man was different from anyone he'd met so far. As night began to fall, the old man asked, "Have you participated in this kind of play before?" Confused, Seowoon replied, "What do you mean by play?" The old man admitted he'd been watching Seowoon for a while and noticed how quickly he had adapted, concluding that Seowoon must already know this world wasn't real. Seowoon asked how long he had been watching him. The old man said he had been following him ever since they were dropped into this world. Seowoon explained that it was his first time being brought here, though he had played similar games in the world he came from. The old man asked, "Is this game like the play happening here?" Seowoon suggested they move to a safer place to continue the conversation, fearing an ambush. The old man agreed but smirked and asked, "But how do you know I won't kill you?" Seowoon didn't respond. Suddenly the old man grabbed him from behind and dashed through the forest silently. The two soon found themselves atop a tree, watching the massive moon above. "Is the moon in your world this big?" the old man asked. "No," Seowoon replied. "It's smaller back home." "It's smaller in my world too," the old man said thoughtfully. Seowoon nodded and said the world he came from was one of highly advanced civilization, where virtual spaces and games with dolls were common. People didn't actually die in those games, they were only for fun. The old man found this fascinating and commented, "Ah, so that's why you adjusted so quickly." They continued their discussion. Seowoon told him about the rank system and the rewards tied to performance. The old man asked, "Even the things on your body, are those rewards too?" Seowoon confirmed, saying that skills and martial arts learned here might even be taken back with them. He then asked about the windball spell and the system window. Seowoon explained how the spell worked and shared a few useful tips about the game world. In return, he listened to stories from the old man's world. Eventually, the old man jumped down with Seowoon and gently set him on the ground. "This old man's taken too much of your time," he said. Seowoon smiled. "Not at all. I enjoyed hearing your stories." In his heart, he thought that staying with this man might actually be the safest choice. Before leaving, the old man asked for a favor in return for all the information he had shared. Seowoon, curious, asked if he could possibly learn some of the old man's martial arts. The old man smiled and replied, "I wouldn't say it's impossible." Seowoon's eyes lit up with surprise, but then the old man's expression turned serious. "You must be prepared for the worst." "What do you mean by that?" Seowoon asked. With a cold tone, the old man answered, "I mean death."